Hey,
Hey,
Bestie.
Bestie.
Hi, so welcome to the holiday edition. Woohoo!
Yes.
As you can see, we are all holiday. Well, I mean, if you're on YouTube, you can see we are all holidayed out. I've got my Santa mug, my Stitch shirt that says "Dear Santa, define naughty," and then my little Christmas tree. Luca, what you got going on?
I've got my I Heart Hot Moms t-shirt. Uh, very Christmassy. And then I have my Santa hat that I got this weekend from somewhere I was working, and my name was embroidered on the top of it.
It's literally so cute.
I've got a little hot chocolate. And by little, I mean it's the size of my
Oh my
face.
god, you weren't kidding. That thing is huge. This thing is itty bitty, so I will finish this in 2 seconds. Also, um, there is whipped cream vodka in here. Just a disclaimer.
As you should.
I've also had a couple others of these also with whipped cream vodka. Uh, so
Also, to add to the holiday spirit, I have some green.
mhm.
And by green for the podcast listeners, I mean weed.
um, I have same thing ish, but in a carton. Everything we do is legal on this podcast.
Oh yeah, 10 out of 10. Even like the murderer, if we talk about 100%.
Would you
He said everything we do on this podcast is legal, and I said, "Yep, the murderers and everything."
We don't do the murders. We just talk about the murders.
It's true. It's true.
Talking about the
And
murders.
we don't always condone them. Maybe
Don't
sometimes.
condone today's killer.
Yeah,
Yes,
we don't condone today's killer.
there is
Last
another
podcast,
killer.
maybe not this one.
That's just the first one. Don't cancel us, please. Okay. So, um, we didn't do the whole names and pronouns thing. So let's go through that.
Oh
I'm
yes.
Haley. I use she, her pronouns and dis be.
And I'm Luca, and I'm using he, they, mainly he, they pronouns, sometimes it pronouns. Basically everything except for she, her pronouns. Like you can use frog pronouns for me if you want to. Whatever floats your boat.
We love frog
And I
here.
mean that genuinely. I'm not joking. You can use frog pronouns for me.
Um,
We stand noun self pronouns here.
so
So
how
we can Okay, so this past week we did a lot of Christmassy stuff over here. Um, my family, we own the Zoo Hobby Farm. We're on TikTok, and Facebook, but like we have like sheep and bunnies and stuff like that. But we had a Christmas tree, and we had like a turkey and all kinds of stuff, and we collected donations from some other local businesses. Um, and like just people in general, and we donated to like a local family, and we gave them basically a week's worth of food, I'm pretty sure, like because we it was like a 22-pound turkey, and then like a shit ton of like pork, I want to say, and then like all kinds of like other food like potatoes and all that kind of stuff. And then I think clothes were donated too, and it was like to a somebody that was in the school, in the high school, I'm pretty sure. So that was pretty cool. And then I worked at a little it's called Hub City Coffee Express and Candy Company. I worked there this weekend, and that was pretty fun. They're a little local business. Um, they have like a bakery, and they do sandwiches and obviously candy, and then they do embroidery and stuff like that too. And they had a little Santa's workshop this weekend.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was super cute.
Uh, I wish my week was that Christmassy.
My week was very Christmassy. I'm not normally very Christmassy, but
Well, when we get to the family traditions, I get pretty Christmassy, but this
mhm,
has not been for me. I've been home alone all week, as you know, Bestie.
yeah,
Um, my whole family went to Disney without me. Um, and then,
because you had to work, right?
yeah, because I couldn't get off work because, like I said,
It's
I'm a
Christmas week. Yeah.
retail. Um, busiest time of the year, guys. Be nice to your local retail workers, please. We want to die. Um,
Yeah.
but my poor puppy, I say puppy, he's 5 years old. Um, he's got this problem. It's like this genetic problem with his breed where his discs, like they can slip out of place and then he would be completely paralyzed. And so he seemed to have like a flare up of that. And so I had to take him to the vet, and now he has to be completely crated. And so he is just sitting there looking at me all sad right now.
Mhm.
Doesn't appreciate being in the crate, but he's fine if he's at least hanging out somewhat. So, other than that, I've been working so much. This is the first day I've had off this week. Um, but yeah, my family's coming home tonight, so that's
As
exciting.
they should.
I know I don't have to spend Christmas Eve alone.
Yeah, I thought originally I thought you were gonna have to spend Christmas Eve alone, and I felt so bad.
Well, I do have to work tomorrow. Um,
Yeah,
so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I'm also I don't remember what
and
time I quit.
we stand our coworker. Well, I say our. I don't work there anymore because I moved to across the country. But
Yeah, you moved to across.
but we stand our coworkers.
Yeah. Um, I don't remember how late I'm working, like 5 or 6 or something. Not super late.
That's not bad.
Um, but then of course I'm off on Christmas.
Yeah,
I get to spend the day with my family. And Sylvie's
I
like,
like that most businesses are starting to close on like holidays.
yeah,
Although when we had Thanksgiving, Walmart was completely closed for Thanksgiving, which kind of fucking sucks
yeah,
because it's Walmart. A lot of people also don't celebrate Thanksgiving because we don't stand colonizers. But like, there's also the fact that it is a necessity store. Like, it's important. And they didn't close during the pandemic at all, like when everything was closed up. So I think it's kind of odd that they closed on Thanksgiving. Like I don't think they should be open all day, and I don't think they should be making people work all day for Thanksgiving. But I think they should be open till maybe like noon.
hmm,
So that's just my opinion on it. I'm sure the workers might have a different opinion, but there's plenty of people that don't celebrate that holiday too.
yeah. I saw this post on Facebook a while back, and it was a post where they, in their work, it was a sign that was printed that said, um, no time off requests will be accepted from like this date to this date. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like end of November to like midway through January or something. And the person that posted it like literally said that they were a nurse in,
Yeah,
and so if you're a nurse and you work in a hospital, that makes sense.
yeah,
Then people were like saying that the nurses were being exploited and that they should be able to take off and spend time with their families
but
too.
when you become a nurse, like you understand that you're probably not going to get holidays off like that.
Like most hospitals have rotations. So when
Yeah.
my mom was working full time because she cut down to as needed, or PRN for while she was doing school and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, when she was going full time, she would have to do a holiday rotation. So it was like 1 year she would work Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day, and Easter or something. And then it would switch the next year. And she would work Black Friday,
Yeah,
um,
that makes sense.
Christmas Day.
And I feel like if you're working like that kind of job, or even retail, like because retail, a lot of the times you will work during the holidays, it's not that big of a deal to celebrate the holiday on a different day.
Right. And like it was no big of like obviously it's frustrating to have to celebrate later in the evening, but we would wait until my mom got off work at 7 sometime.
Exactly. Like if you care about your family, like you can make that accommodation.
Right. And so then they were like, why don't you ask the exploited nurses how they feel? And I was like, okay. I was like, when your loved one is in the hospital, you and it's Christmas Day and someone needs to take care of your loved one, you can tell my mom to go ahead and be at home with her family and let your loved one die.
Right.
Go ahead and tell the electric company that they don't have to work. And so then they can just go home. And then when you inevitably burn down your house trying to cook your Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner over a makeshift fire,
Right.
you can tell the fire department to not come and clean up the fire
Right.
because
And most firefighters are volunteers too. Like I saw someone saying the same thing. Oh, firefighters and EMT and all that kind of stuff shouldn't have to work, but a lot of firefighters are volunteer, and they will gladly, even though it's a holiday, they will still go out and help someone because they want to. They want to help people.
One of my coworkers is working at the fire department on Christmas Day. She's volunteering.
Yeah, and a lot of people volunteer for like soup kitchens and stuff.
Yeah. So it's just such like a crazy thing. Like it's a crazy mentality, I guess. You know?
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of these people that complain about that kind of stuff have never worked like a real job. And I'm counting retail and stuff like that as a real job too. Like a lot of people haven't worked with people.
That's shit. It's draining.
Or like fast food. Like imagine if fast food closed. You know how many people wouldn't even get to celebrate their holidays if fast food was closed? Because there's a lot of people that go and get like KFC or McDonald's or whatever for their whole family because they can't afford to do like a different kind of dinner, or they don't have the time to do it.
Well, and my best friend and her family, they celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So then Christmas is just like a day off for them, but then like everything's closed pretty much. So I guess that kind of leads into the next. Yeah. So our family traditions. Who's going first, Bestie?
You can go first.
Okay. So every year for Christmas, if my mom isn't working, pre-COVID, we're talking pre-COVID here, because obviously COVID has fucked a lot of things up. Our normal family tradition was that we enacted a few years back is, as I had said, my mom's a nurse. So we would get up in the mornings, we would do our stockings and breakfast and open up presents. And it's me, my mom, my stepdad, and my little sister. And we spend, the morning at home. And then we all go over to my grandmother's house at some point and we do presents and stockings and stuff over there. Sometimes we eat over there instead of here. It really just depends on how early we go over. And then when we're all done hanging out and opening presents over there, we all go home and we kind of like chill in our like rooms and stuff for a little bit, play with whatever we got, see what we got, put it all away, do all that. And then we go to the hospital that's close by that my mom works at. And my grandfather, he does Santa in the like mall in the next state, in the state next door to us. And so he puts on his Santa outfit and we get all Christmassy up. We put on little hats and stuff, and we take trays of cookies that my grandmother made to all of the nurses' stations, and we give them to all of the nurses. And one of my favorite things that ever happened was we went to the labor and delivery unit, and there was some like fresh babies, and like we went to like, you know, the newborns and all that. And he took first Christmas pictures with these little like 1 day old babies.
Fresh out
Yeah.
the oven.
Like, and it was like their first Christmas. They had just been born. They're literally still in the fucking hospital. And here comes Santa. And he's taking these pictures with these babies and these parents. And then there was this man that was on one of the other units, and he just like, he called us, he saw us in the hallway. He was like, Santa, Santa, come here. And he was this older man. And we walk in and he has a Santa hat on, and he's just like laughing, and like he's just so happy that we're all there. One year there was kids on the pediatric floor, and they were actually, I think, going home like that day. And they we took them like coloring books and candy canes. Like we took like all kinds of goodies and stuff for the kids that like were there, and it made everyone's day so much better. Because like, you know, they're in the hospital on Christmas. It's not the most joyous occasion. And then comes Santa and what appears to be Mrs. Claus walking down the hallway. And it's really magical, and it's my favorite thing that we've started doing. And obviously we couldn't do it last year because of the pandemic, but this year we're gonna get to do it again, and
that's cool.
Excited. I'm so excited. So yeah, that's my family tradition. What's your family tradition, Bessie?
So obviously it's changed over the last couple of years because I've moved around and COVID and all that kind of stuff. But normally, I think I did talk about it on the last podcast a little bit too. But normally, Christmas Eve, like I lived with my grandparents, so Christmas Eve we would like do our gifts that we had at home. Sometimes we would do them after Christmas, but normally we did them Christmas Eve. We used to decorate, but my grandfather and I convinced my grandmother to stop doing that because we weren't home for Christmas. Because we on Christmas Eve, after we like do the gifts and stuff in the morning, we would do like stockings or whatever. And then we would get in the car, probably around 8 in the morning or something like that, pretty early in the morning. And we would drive over to my grandfather's side of the family. So we would see his sister and my cousins from that side of the family. And we would do their little Christmas party. And then for a couple hours, Pop Up would get to see all like his brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff. And then we would go over to my aunt's house. So it's my mom's brother's house. And we would go over there, and I had two little cousins. They right now they're, I think the oldest one is like 13 now. So yeah, he like in high school or about to be in high school, and I'm like, what the heck? You were like 8 like 2 days ago. What is this?
Be in middle school, and I'm going through a midlife crisis at 21.
Right. but we would go over there. My aunt, she has a really big family, so we would do a really big Christmas party. There'd be like at least 30 people there, I'm pretty sure, if not more. Um, and that was always super fun because I never really get to see her family either. And they're all super nice people. So we hung out with them and did the Christmas, and then they would do like one year I think there was like an ugly sweater contest, and I wore like this elf sweater. I was like one of the only people wearing an ugly sweater.
That's offensive.
Right. Like there were a couple other people doing it, but I think I was like one of the only ones, at least to my memories.
Everybody can participate.
But I had like a little elf hat and like an elf dress on and stuff.
I love it.
Right. And then we would do the white elephant gift exchange thing,
Oh,
which was always super fun. One year I got a George Foreman and like a little George Foreman grill, and I still have it. It was like my favorite thing I've ever owned. I be making grilled cheeses all the time.
valid.
And they would also do the pickle thing where they hide the pickle in the tree, but only for little kids, I think. Like the little kids have to go find the pickle and then they like get a gift or something.
What is this tradition?
Yeah, it's totally a thing. My grandparents had a pickle for the tree, and we were never allowed to hang it on the tree because it's for the game. So they were like, no, you can't hang the pickle on the tree. But it was like my favorite ornament. You gotta like hide it in the tree, and then like the kids find it, and then you get like a gift.
I've never heard of this tradition. I like how I'm looking at my tree like there's one on there.
Find the pickle on your tree, Haley.
It doesn't exist, let me tell you.
And then after, like, we would have dinner and all that kind of stuff, and then people would start leaving a little bit later, like, and we'd have like Christmas music or like movies on in the background. And then we would go to bed, and then obviously like Santa would come at night and put all the gifts out and all that kind of stuff. And we would go down in the morning, and we would do like gifts. Mainly we would watch like my little cousins opening all their gifts because they get a lot of gifts. And like we would get gifts and all that kind of stuff too, so it was super fun. And then we would have breakfast. My aunt's dad would come over and his wife, and we would have breakfast, and it was super fun. And we would go to my other aunt's house, so my grandmother's sister or grandmother's side of the family would go there for dinner, and my great grandmother was there too. She just turned 100 this year.
God.
Right. I think Betty White just turned 100. I think my mom just said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's turning 100.
Yeah, or she's turning 100, something like that. But we would go to my aunt's house, and we would have dinner over there, and we'd hang out with my cousins. And then we would go home a little bit later, like maybe around 6 or 7, something like that. And then if we still had gifts at home, we would open those. And that was mainly my Christmas tradition.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So we both have a lot to do for Christmas.
Yeah, this year it's gonna be a little bit different. Like, well, a lot different because I'm with my mom this year.
Yeah.
But she's gonna do like mac and cheese and ham and stuff like that. And then we'll do like I think Christmas Eve it's just gonna be us, and then I think Christmas a couple people are gonna be coming. We might go over to the Moose Lodge Christmas Eve and bring one of their friends a dinner. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what my mom was saying. And then New Year's is the bigger party that my mom's is gonna have. And Randy's part of like some biker groups, so like I think they're gonna come over for like the New Year's Day party. Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. I get to deliver cookies to a hospital. Which I mean is amazing.
Yeah.
I love doing it. I really do. So I guess that takes us out of our personal family traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And now we decided You guys are going to love this. It's a treat. We decided that for this very manic holiday, that we would tell you where the tradition of Christmas itself comes from.
Yes.
We would take a little journey back in time.
On history.com.
Thank God for history.com. Speaking of God, hey, I'm good at the segues. Hey, people.
Jesus wasn't born in the winter.
Okay. Yes, Jesus was not born on December 25th. I hate to burst your bubble. But yes. So long before it was deemed Jesus's birthday, it was already being celebrated. In Scandinavia, the Norse celebrated Yule from December 21st, the winter solstice, through January in recognition of the return of the sun. Fathers and sons would bring home large logs and they would set them on fire. They were Yule logs. And they would feast until the log had burned itself out. And that usually took about 12 days. They believed that each spark from the fire represented a new pig or calf that would be born during the coming year. So this is where the 12 days of Christmas comes from. Wow. The more you know, right? The end of December was a perfect time for celebration in most areas of Europe. At that time of year, most cattle were slaughtered so they would not have to be fed during the winter. Sorry, I'm having so much trouble reading right now. For many, it was the only time of year when they had a supply of fresh meat. In addition, most wine and beer made during that year was finally fermented and ready for drinking. So they're like, we just butchered everything. We've got so much meat. We've got so much wine and beer. Let's get drunk and eat.
Right.
Eat, drink, be merry.
As you should.
I mean, I support this behavior. In Germany, people honored the pagan god Odin during the midwinter holiday. Germans were terrified of Odin as they believed he made nocturnal flights throughout the sky to observe people and then decided who would prosper or perish. Because of his presence, many people chose to stay safe inside, which, I mean, I would understand if that, if that's what you believe, then right. I would also want to stay inside.
It's kind of like that whole I could be wrong, but like in the Bible a similar thing happens, and I think that's what like not Easter. There's like a thing where like you had to like put a mark above your door, and then like if you didn't have the mark, your firstborn was gonna be like murdered by God.
Yeah, I think it was like lamb's blood or something.
Yeah.
In Rome, where winters were not as harsh as those up north, Saturnalia, a holiday in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture, was celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
In the week leading up to the winter solstice and continuing for a full month, Saturnalia, it was a hedonistic time when food and drink were plentiful and the normal Roman social order was turned upside down. So once again, eat, drink, be merry. For a month, enslaved people were given temporary freedom and treated as equals. That's a novel concept, just instead of freeing them all the time, we'll free them for a month. Businesses and schools were closed so that everyone could participate in the holidays' festivities. If they're all happier during this time, why not? Ancient times confuse me. The mentality. Oh, yeah. Also, around the time of the winter solstice, Romans observed Juvenalia. We're going to hope I said that right. Mm-hmm. A feast honoring the children of Rome. And in addition of the upper classes, they often celebrated the birthday of Mithra, the god of the unconquerable sun, on December 25th. So, seeing where the December 25th comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
For some Romans, Mithra's birthday was the most sacred day of the year. So, as I said before, Jesus was not born on December 25th.
Right. Like whether you look at it from a historical standpoint or a religious standpoint, that's just not when he was born.
Right. So the Bible does not specifically mention the date of his birth. But there is evidence that suggests that his birth may have occurred in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to do with I believe it was referred to as the Christmas star or the North Star or something like that. I've heard it referred to as both when I've heard of this, but it's because they've tracked like the placement of where it would have been in the sky the year that it is suspected that Jesus was born, or like you know, and they found that his birthday, I believe it's sometime, I want to say May or June, somewhere in there. So
the reason a lot like Christmas became such a thing too was because of colonization. A lot of Christians wanted pagans to celebrate Christmas and become Christian, and like a lot of the time they were like, "Hey, we want you to be Christian," and they're like, "Well, we have all these cool holidays already. Why would we switch over?" And they're like, "Actually, we have a similar holiday where you do the exact same thing on the same day. What a cool meeting!"
It says right here, it says Pope Julius I chose December 25th. It is commonly believed that the Church chose this date in an effort to adopt and absorb the traditions of the pagan Saturnalia festival, first called the Feast of the Nativity. The custom spread to Egypt by 432 and to England by the end of the 6th century. By holding Christmas at the same time as traditional winter solstice festivals, church leaders increased the chances that Christmas would be popularly embraced, but gave up the ability to dictate how it was celebrated. So in the Middle Ages, Christianity had pretty much wiped out Yule and Saturnalia and all of the other holidays that were celebrated at that time. And so on Christmas, believers would attend church and celebrate and get drunk, and it was very similar to Mardi Gras. Each year, a beggar or a student would be crowned the Lord of Misrule, and eager celebrants played the part of the subjects. The poor would go to the houses of the rich and demand their best food and drink. If owners failed to comply, their visitors would most likely terrorize them with mischief. Christmas became the time of year when the upper classes could repay their real or imagined debt to society by entertaining less fortunate citizens. So, and then in the early 17th century, a wave of religious reform changed the way Christmas was celebrated in Europe. Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan forces, they came in. You know, the Puritans, they loved doing this shit. So in 1645, they vowed to rid England of decadence, and as part of their effort, canceled Christmas. Grinch. By popular demand, Charles II was restored to the throne, and with him came the return of Christmas once again. Can't kill Christmas. You can't kill Christmas. The Pilgrims, the ones that came to America in 1620, they were even more orthodox than Cromwell. And so as a result, Christmas was not a holiday here at first. From 1659 to 1681, it was outlawed in Boston. It was illegal to celebrate Christmas. Anyone exhibiting Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. I'm not sure what a shilling exactly equates to,
Mhm.
but I assume you wouldn't want to pay it.
Right.
Uh,
Like I would assume that sounds like it would be a lot.
I don't know. I don't know.
It doesn't sound like a lot, like physically, but like if they're charging them for celebrating a holiday, I feel like it's probably way more than necessary because they love doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so in Jamestown, though, Captain John Smith reported that Christmas was enjoyed by all and passed without incident. After the American Revolution, English customs fell out of favor, including Christmas, and Christmas wasn't declared a federal holiday until June 26th, 1870, which is still a long time ago, but it's not that long ago.
Yeah.
Then again, America's not that old in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Um, so then, like I said earlier, in the 19th century, Americans began to embrace Christmas. They reinvented it, made it about, family, shit like that. Um, the 19th century was a period of class conflict and turmoil. Unemployment was high, and gang rioting by the lower class often occurred during the Christmas season. In 1828, the New York City Council instituted the city's first police force in response to a Christmas riot. It catalyzed certain members of the upper class to begin to change the way Christmas was celebrated in America. So then, 1819, Washington Irving wrote the sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon. That does say crayon. Gent, a series of stories about the celebration of Christmas in an English manor house. The sketches, they had a squire who invited the peasants into his house, and the two groups mingled absolutely fine. They did perfectly well. In his mind, Christmas should be a peaceful, warm-hearted holiday and bring groups together. So Saint Nicholas was born in Turkey around 280 AD. He gave away all of his inherited wealth and traveled, helping the poor and sick, and he became known as protector of children and sailors. He first entered American popular.
He like Robin Hood, but not poor.
Yeah. In the late 18th century in New York, when Dutch families gathered to honor the anniversary of the death of Saint Nicholas, Dutch, which it's just spelled different. I like it's spelled fun. Or Sinterklaas for short, Santa Claus, draws his name from this abbreviation. So, yeah, I've got some Christmas facts. Uh,
Yeah.
Each year, 30 to 35 million real Christmas trees are sold in the United States alone.
Ooh.
Um, let's see.
Do you guys have a real tree? That's a real tree, right?
What?
The tree behind you?
Yeah, it's a real tree.
I thought so.
But yeah, so that is the Christmas tradition and where it comes from. It's a stolen holiday.
It is. It very much is. We don't stand colonization.
However, I can understand if you still, celebrate Christmas because it's your tradition.
100%. Go ahead and celebrate whatever the heck you want to celebrate.
Right,
It's just helpful to know like where things come from.
right, 100%.
There's nothing inherently problematic about Christmas.
Right.
Just like with like Thanksgiving, it's not a good holiday and doesn't come from anything good. But I like the whole like just being with your family thing. And that's what most people celebrate when they celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And they give thanks. They don't sit there and talk about the pilgrims and how they killed a bunch of native people. Maybe they should talk about it a little bit, but they don't talk about it. It's more of like a getting with your family holiday.
Well, okay, this isn't the topic of today's episode, but my Thanksgiving tradition when my whole family comes to town is we eat a bunch of food, like way too much fucking food,
Mm-hmm.
and then we debate politics.
As you should. I know. So like a lot of people are like, don't talk about politics, don't talk about sexuality, don't talk about religion. Like those are the three main things you're not supposed to talk about when you're like in group settings like that. But like they're the only things I really enjoy talking about, let's be honest. And I'm not there to like just start arguments. I do genuinely enjoy listening to why someone might believe a certain thing, whether I believe it to be true or not. Like I think it's kind of cool to listen to it, whether I think they're stupid or not. Sometimes it's just funny.
Yeah. So that takes us into your LGBT.
Yes. So
So
there was this article that I had found. It was really hard finding like an article on like what exactly I wanted to look for, like what exactly I was looking for. But basically, this is like the struggles of being LGBT during the holidays because it is already a stressful time for everybody. But kids who are stuck at home for longer, like they can't go to school to escape their family, or kids that are like not living, people who aren't living at home, or people that are like living on campus or whatever, they don't have to, but a lot of people go home and see their families for the holidays, which can really fucking suck when you're LGBT, especially if your family is like super homophobic or transphobic or whatever, or you're just not out to your family, which is pretty stressful too. One of the main things that I noticed in this article was like they were asking, they were talking about the fact that like a lot of time if you see family that you haven't seen in a while, they'll ask you, hey, do you have a girlfriend, or hey, do you have a boyfriend? Like it's very gendered. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, like LGBT people uncomfortable, because they're completely forgetting non-binary people, or don't know about non-binary people, or they're maybe asking the wrong gendered term, or excluding like the fact that bisexual people might exist. An easy way to combat that is like, say your aunt walks up to you and they're like, hey, Kaylee, do you have a boyfriend? And you can be like, no, actually, I have a girlfriend. Not that you have a girlfriend, but like if you did. No, actually, I have a girlfriend. Or no, actually, I have a non-binary partner. Like it's an easy thing to do. But if your family is homophobic, again, that can be really stressful. And especially if you're not out to them or you don't want to come out yet. Especially if you're younger and you are living at home. A lot of people will try to come out on holidays, which I think is a bad idea, but I get it. Like it makes sense, like all your family's there and you want to tell them all at the same time. Because it can be stressful to have to call everybody or text everybody and be like, hey, I'm going by Luca now. I'm using he, they pronouns. Please refer to me as such. Like, it's just kind of annoying sometimes, and then everybody will forget. But like, um, but like a lot of there's also the fact that a lot of people, if they're away at school or like if they're just not living at home in general, a lot of trans people will start to transition without telling their family. And then you go to the holidays, and obviously, like you were very feminine before, maybe, and now your features are a lot more masculine and your voice is deeper. Like,
yeah.
That can be a little bit hard to explain. Sometimes you can get away with just saying, "Oh, I just have a cold," or you might have to say, "Hey, I'm trans. I'm transitioning," and there's nothing you can do about it. If you don't want me here, fuck you. Basically. I mean, if your family's a dick and like if your family sucks and they're transphobic and homophobic or whatever, you don't have to go home. I know a lot of people want to, but you're like, if you can put up with it, then go for it if you want to. But if it's too much for you, there's no reason that you have to go home for the holidays. You can start your own traditions. I'm sure there's a lot of people whose friends may not also want to go home or can't go home or whatever the situation is. And you can start your own traditions, or you can go volunteer at a soup kitchen or something and like do something else for the holidays. Um, let me see. There are a lot of people who, like, some people's families are just blatantly awful,
Yeah.
and will not invite you, will not want you to come, will threaten you or even harm you. If you're in that situation, please don't go home if you don't have to.
Yeah.
But like, there are, I think it's very common. My family's kind of like this, where like it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more of like an unspoken thing. Like they just don't talk about it and they pretend you're not trans or they pretend you're not LGBT, which really sucks. But it is a more privileged situation than other situations, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but going home after being like gendered properly by your family or your friends all the time, and then going home and then your family is using the wrong pronouns or wrong name for you, um, or like expect you to wear a dress or something, like that really sucks. But sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, or you can just not go. But
Yeah.
I know there's like that whole, one of my biggest like pet peeves is when people are like, "Oh, blood is thicker than water. Your family's really important." Like, but it's still a relationship, and you have every right to not have a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
Like, and it's hard, but
Yeah.
if it's harming you and your mental health and you're able to stop talking to them and stop interacting as much, go for it.
And then there was a TikTok that I had seen
Mm-hmm.
where this guy, he is trans and his mom
And
was,
a minor, they were also kids.
yes, they are close, he is close to turning 18, I believe.
Yeah, I think his profile said 16, so I don't know how close to 17 that is. Like he is, but close to 18, close to being able to go to college.
Um but his mom was refusing to put his name on his stocking, and his stocking had his dead name on it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the video, you could hear his mom and his dad misgendering him and
He
using,
was crying in the video.
like, it was so heartbreaking. And that's just like
A
another,
lot of the times, I think in the video they were doing this too, but a lot of the times they'll be like, parents or family or whatever will be like, "Oh, well, I'm trying really hard and it's really hard for me too. My kid is no longer my kid anymore. um I'm losing a daughter," which is really fucking stupid. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm swearing a lot, but
okay,
it's it's really stupid. Like,
it,
you're not losing a kid. Your kid is the same as they were before.
100,
Maybe after they're out, they're going to have a lot better mental health if you're not a dick to them. Um, and if you respect that, and if you actually put in the effort, like, we understand as trans people, we understand that it does take time, and there's like a process to being able to call your kid a different name, being able to call your kid by different pronouns. Like, it's difficult sometimes. Um, but when you sit there and you're like, "Oh, I'm trying," and you like make a big deal out of it, but then there's no effort that's visibly put in, then it's disrespectful,
yeah,
and it's hurtful.
yeah. Like, it's hard, but like when you've known, like when that's your child, and you've had them a certain way for so long, and you've seen them a certain way for so long. I
Mhm.
understand that it's hard, but it's not as hard as some parents make it out to be.
Yeah, and it's a lot harder for the trans person going through it than it is for
Right.
you. Like, it's a lot harder, the amount of hatred that we've had for ourselves, or maybe not always hatred, but like just dysphoria or whatever emotions that they're feeling. And then you go to somebody and you want to trust them, and then they don't react the way that you think they're going to react, like, which is fine if you have a certain reaction, but like if you're violent or you're hateful or you're just disrespectful, it's completely unnecessary. Like, I get it if like maybe you don't support it or you don't understand it, but keep that to yourself
Yeah.
and maybe put your own research in.
Yeah.
Like, it's not hard. Like, if your kid, not to compare transness to like mental illnesses, because obviously being trans is not a mental illness, but if your kid had just some sort of mental health issue, um, you, for the most part, most parents would probably put the research in, ask doctors what that is, what it means, how to help, and all that kind of stuff. So there's no reason you can't do that when your kid comes out as trans or non-binary or any form of LGBT.
Yeah. 100%. Today's case.
Crunching, can you?
Huh?
You can't hear my chips when I eat them, can you?
Your chips?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not like making noise.
Okay. So today's case, we're going to be talking about a serial killer known as the Santa Strangler. So, Adolf Theodore Londenberg was born in Lexington, Kentucky in 1926 to German immigrant parents. His father was a butcher, and his mother died a few years after she had given birth to him, leaving his father to care for his son all alone during the Great Depression and World War II. When he was young, Adolf took to whittling as a hobby. He made these really unique walking canes out of the like salvaged wood, and like it's a manzanita bush or a shrub. It's like red and like spiky, and it's got like leaves. I don't know. People can look it up. Anyways, he would sell these for $10, or he would just give them away to people that he saw in town.
Mm-hmm.
In 1944, at age 18, he joined the Navy. It was while he was serving in the Naval Construction Battalion in Trinidad that he met the woman who would later become his wife, Annelle. The two of them fell in love, got married, and Adolf actually ended up adopting her son, Steve. The happy little family moved to California when Adolf left the service, and he got a job as a security guard at a steel plant. Before long, he switched gears a little bit and became a cab driver in the San Pedro area of California in the late 1960s. According to a friend of the couple named Jimmy Martin, the couple were an odd fit. He said that Annelle worked at a dance studio. She was very outgoing and health conscious. She liked to eat healthy and work out, whereas Adolf was more of an introvert. He didn't really like to dance or go out all that much, and they've said that he was pretty generous and kind, but he mostly kept to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Martin actually was quoted as saying this of Adolf. He said he was always ready to help anybody who needed help. He would give people money who needed it. So it was Christmas of 1972 when Adolf Laudenberg was on his usual night working as a cab driver, and he picked up 43-year-old Lois Patrice in his cab. Sorry, it's so far away and I don't have my glasses on. Lois was an alcoholic and she had recently lost her husband to cancer, actually. And so that night understandably, it's Christmas. She's an alcoholic. She just lost her husband. She was out at a bar drinking.
Yeah.
So she got into Adolph Laudenberg's cab to go home. He took her home like he normally would with any of his other clients. However, this night something changed. For whatever reason, he decided to go in after Lois, rape, and strangle her. He left her nude body laying on her bed and just went home to his wife and son. Police investigating her case collected all the evidence that they could. However, DNA testing wasn't really used in police investigation at this time because it wasn't that far advanced. It was the early 1970s. They didn't start using that stuff until the 1980s in police investigation. So they couldn't test it, but they collected the evidence anyways. And they stored it. They couldn't really find much else, and eventually the case went cold. Now, the murder of Lois must have satisfied Adolf for some time because it wasn't until 2 years later, in August of 1974, that he struck again. Catherine Medina was 50 years old when she went missing on August 18th, 1974. She had been out to the bar late that night, and the two of them and her husband had gotten into an argument with her when he found her there. I guess she wasn't supposed to be there, and he was mad at her for going, and he got her out of the bar, and they were walking home. It was on this walk home that she ran away from him down the street, and he saw her jump into a van with an unknown man driving and speed off into the night.
Mm-hmm.
She was found the next morning naked in some bushes in Harbor Lake Recreational Park. She had been raped and strangled as well.
Mm-hmm.
Adolph's desire to kill again came back much faster this time, and he struck again only 1 month later. On September 4th, 1974, Anne Felch, a 54-year-old hot dog stand employee, was leaving a bar in the middle of the night. She was found a few hours later by a construction worker. She had also been raped and strangled. In April of 1975, 60-year-old Leah Griffith, a legal secretary who had been recently diagnosed with breast cancer, was out on a typical night drinking. Her body was found at a residential hotel in San Francisco. She had been bound, raped, and strangled.
How old was the first victim?
The first victim, she was 43.
And then the second one was 50?
Yeah. 43, 50,
That's what was in her 60s, you said?
54, and 60.
That's so odd. Normally, it's younger people that people go after.
Well, I've seen it said that he went after people that reminded him of his wife.
Okay. And how old was he?
He, at this time, let's see, he was born in 1926. Mm-hmm. So in 1974, he would have been in his 40s.
Okay.
Right? Does that matter?
Yeah. I don't know. I failed math.
No. He would have been in his 50s.
Damn, he out here murdering people when he's old.
I don't know if he would have been his ex-wife at this point. We're getting there. Anyways.
I would assume.
So all 4 women have been found raped and strangled. In the summer of 1975, Adolph's stepson Steve, his girlfriend Jeannie, was coming to stay while she looked for an apartment for the two of them to share together. They were moving in together. It was a big step in their relationship. I think they were both around 18 at the time. and like early 20s, 18, early 20s. Steve was out of town at the moment, so Adolf picked Jeannie up from the airport, and they were spending like time together, like going around looking at apartments and stuff. She recalled that at this time he seemed like a nice, elderly, fatherly man. Um, he took her out to all of her like apartment shopping and stuff like that, and to like pick out the apartment with her. And once she found a place, he took her to flea markets and different like thrift stores and stuff like that, so that way she could get furniture to like get the house ready for Steve to come home.
Mhm.
And she said that they had a really nice time, and she said that they must have, like, I guess they got somewhat close to each other because she had apparently started calling him dad.
Okay.
Um,
And this
at,
was his daughter-in-law, right?
well, at the time she was only dating the
Okay.
um his stepson, but then she eventually married him.
Okay.
But after a few days, all of a sudden Adolf started acting very differently towards Jeannie. It was less
In
father.
case anybody was curious, he was named Adolf before the World Wars.
Mhm.
In case anybody didn't know that time frame, we googled it just to be sure. We're like, that's an odd thing to name your child.
He's not giving a good reputation to people with the name Adolf, though.
Yeah, not that he's giving a good representation, but he was named before the wars. So parents weren't. Yeah. Okay.
So, anyways, after a few days, all of a sudden Adolf started acting differently towards Jeannie. It was less fatherly, and it was more affectionate and flirtatious. He even apparently at one point told her that he was in love with her.
Ooh.
Yeah. Adolf started leaving Jeannie love notes on her windshield, and of course, she felt so weird about all of it.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the
I would
notes
hope so.
one of the notes said, "Dear Jeannie, Dad loves you. Love, Dad,"
Mhm.
which is so creepy.
Yeah.
A little bit before Steve was supposed to be home, Adolf took Jeannie aside and told her about the serial killer that was active in the San Pedro area. Jeannie didn't pay much attention to it. I guess she just kind of took it as like, oh, like he just wants me to be careful. He's just warning me.
Mhm.
But soon she realized that that's not what was going on.
Yeah.
They were in the car one day alone together, and Adolf turned to Jeannie and told her that he had murdered 4 women. He told her that 3 of the murders had taken place in LA and 1 had been in San Francisco. She asked, like, what are you talking about? There's no way. And he said that he strangled and raped them. At first, she didn't believe him. She was like, there's absolutely no way that this man, this, kind, fatherly man could have done this, until one day she saw him angry. She said that he started beating the car and screaming. So, like I said, after this, she fully believed that he was capable of murder.
Mhm.
And so Jeannie at this point was convinced that she would be his 5th victim. So at this point, Adolf, she's trying to avoid him. So she starts spending a lot more time in the library to not be home alone with him while she's waiting for Steve to get back.
Mhm.
And apparently, at one point, Adolf had revealed or had said to her that these he considered these to be his 4 sins.
Mhm.
Um, so, anyways, like I said, she's spending a lot of time in the library to avoid him, and all the time that she's spending in the library, he's still leaving notes on her car windshield. He's saying things like, like telling her that he loves her, begging her not to tell Steve about, the fact that he loves her or the fact that he murdered 4 women. And, of course, she's like, no, I'm going to tell him. And so
Yeah.
she does. She tells him, and Steve, believes her. He takes her to the police station. She reports it to the police, but the police don't really believe her. But they still got to bring him in anyways, because,
Yeah.
it's a pretty big accusation.
Yeah.
And so they brought him in, they questioned him, and he was very calm. He was very charming. He was charismatic. He answered all of their questions, and he completely denied everything. And so the police just had to let him go. Um, Jeannie just felt weird about the whole situation. She was uncomfortable. But she and Steve eventually got married. They didn't invite Adolf to the wedding, and they ended up moving away. However, after a while, Jeannie got a postcard in the mail from Adolf saying that he was going to be coming into the area. And she also started getting love letters again.
Mm-hmm.
She began to fear to live her daily life. He tried sending letters professing his love to her, apologizing for what happened, but obviously she was having absolutely none of it. But she said one day the letters just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Jeannie and Steve eventually got a divorce, and Jeannie moved again and tried to forget about all of it happening. Adolf went about his life, and he was actually married to Annelle for 30 years before they divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when it's kind of funny though, because when they were having this conversation, Annelle confessed to him that she did not love him and also that she was a stripper,
Mm-hmm.
which I can only imagine how that conversation went. Just,
Right.
hey, sweetie, I've got something to tell you. I don't love you. And also, I'm a stripper. Like,
How do you not know your partner is a stripper? Let's be honest. Like, he must have not been very perceptive.
right. So, after they divorced, he moved to New Orleans and then came back to California. So now we're in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And Adolf is a loving grandfather. He even dresses up and goes and plays the Santa at the malls for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the town loved him.
Mm-hmm.
His stepson had remarried to a woman named Renee, and for a while he went to stay with her and his stepson and their children. Renee and Adolf spent a decent amount of time together, just, taking care of the children, hanging out with them, playing games with them, stuff like that. And like he absolutely adored his grandchildren. He was reportedly an amazing grandfather. And apparently Renee herself even called him grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
One day when he was alone with her, Adolf confessed his murders to her as well. She also didn't believe him, and she asked him to tell her how he had done it. He admitted to strangling them with his hands. Renee, he said that he remembered seeing that he like watched them fight for their lives,
Mm-hmm.
and like just the like look that he had on his face when he was talking about it. She left the house and she called the police.
Yeah.
She told the detective on the phone that what he had said, and the detective realized that the details that she gave him were only details that could have been given by the killer.
Mm-hmm.
And so the police set up a wiretapped phone conversation between Renee and Adolf where she would try and get him to confess or say something incriminating on the phone so police could arrest him.
Mm-hmm.
On the phone call, she told him how she was so confused by what he had told her and that she's freaking out. She asked him if he regretted anything or had any remorse. All he said was, I take my problems daily to the Lord. She believed that she was next, just as Jeannie had.
Mm-hmm.
Pause. This caused police to reopen the case, and so they called up Jeannie to get her story one more time, you know. And so they asked Jeannie for a photo of Adolf from, you know, back in 1975. And when she found the photo, she found some pretty decent pieces of information. She found all of the love letters that Adolf had ever sent her over the entire time that he had been sending her the letters.
She kept them?
Huh?
She kept them?
She kept them.
That's odd.
I'd keep them too.
Would you?
He confessed to murdering 4 women. I'd keep them.
That's valid.
For insurance. Which is it's a good thing she did. But so anyways, not only did she find the letters and the pictures, she found her old date book in the trunk. Inside, on one of the pages in summer of 1975, she wrote on one of the days, "Dad confesses sins," which was like a little code that she had written to herself, which helped them, you know, add some credibility to her story.
Yeah.
Detectives on the case went back to look for any potential DNA evidence and that had been collected in the cases. They found the files of Catherine Medina, Anna Felch, and Leah Griffin, which was the 3 last victims that we had talked about. However, the DNA was too degraded by this point to be able to run a full DNA test. And they couldn't find the files of Lois, Patrice for a while because they were separated. There was like an issue with like the filing, and a lot of the evidence had been destroyed at one point, like just evidence in general.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But they got called into this evidence storage room where they were told that there was a file cabinet that had evidence that hadn't been put into the computer system yet. And this is where they found the samples that were collected from the body of Lois Patrice. Okay. So, you know, of course, they're terrified that they're going to be far too gone to be able to be tested because the other ones were, and they were later. However, they ended up getting a full DNA profile from this sample. However, they didn't have Adolf's DNA to compare it to. So they couldn't get it from him by, you know, just walking up to him and being like, "Hey, we need your DNA." Because in order to get DNA through like normal means, you need a warrant.
Yeah.
And other than that, it would have to be him willingly providing it, which he would do. And if he knows that you're onto him, he's going to run.
Right.
What made it even worse is that he lived in a mobile home and he was already living, you know, a more transient lifestyle. He was living all across the state of California. He would go here and here and here and here.
Yeah.
So they were having a hard enough time tracking him down as it was. They ended up putting word out on the street with like the homeless population and the drifters and stuff like that, and like letting them know, look out for this, you know, mobile home, look out for this man, give us a call, stuff like that. And so one day they ended up getting after 3 months, for 3 months, they had still been searching for him, and they started to think, you know, maybe he's left the area, until they got a phone call. It was a woman who had seen his trailer nearby, and she ended up deciding to give the information, like the police's information, to Adolf, and he called them.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The police came up with this story in order to lure Adolf into, you know, getting his DNA.
Wait. So this lady sees like the mobile home of someone she knows is a murderer, right? Did they tell that part, or did they just say watch out?
I just think they said we are looking for this man.
But like either way, you would assume maybe he's violent, maybe like there's probably a reason that they're looking for this man. So she just like walks up. She's like, "Hey, the police are looking for you. You should give them a call."
But I don't know. All I know is that he called them.
She like walks up to this murderer's house. "Hey, you should call the cops. They're looking for you. Maybe they got a Christmas present. I don't know."
Oh my god. But the police came up with this story that they wanted to talk to him about a bunch of car burglaries that had been taking place in the area.
Mm-hmm.
There were no car burglaries.
Mm-hmm.
It was all a ruse to get him there. And they had decided on meeting at a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was perfect. What the police needed was for Laudenberg to take some sips of that coffee and then either throw it away in the trash can or just leave it on the table. Because then at that point, it becomes public property. Like it's not like they're taking the DNA from his home or from his possessions. He's just leaving it there and they're just taking it.
Mm-hmm.
So he met with the officer and they started to talk about these burglaries. While they were sat there together, this man looked at this officer and said, "You know, I thought you were coming here to talk to me about these murders the murders of 4 women in the San Pedro area in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
Homie, what?
Did he want to get arrested? Like, is he just fucking stupid?
He literally said, "Yeah, I thought you were coming to talk to me about the murders in San Pedro in the 1970s.
How old was he at this point?
He was
in his 70s.
He was I have it somewhere. I think he was 80.
Damn.
Something.
Damn. You're old.
Hold on.
I thought you were going to talk to me about these completely irrelevant murders that I have nothing to do with.
Hold on. Okay, so anyways, so at this point, the officer started to panic because he's like, fuck, he's figured me out. He's going to take this coffee cup. We're not going to get the DNA. But the officer was able to get him to not think that anymore, get him back on the car burglaries. They had their conversation finished, and Adolf left the coffee shop.
I just want to know how the cop got him to not think that anymore.
I know. I couldn't find it. All that they said in my like research and stuff was that he just used his wit and like was able to convince him. I don't know. But he Adolf left the coffee shop without throwing away his cup. He had left it on the table.
Okay. I thought you were about to say he took it with him, and I was like, goddamn.
No. So the officer, he took this coffee cup and he took it home. Well, he didn't take it home, but he took it to the police precinct.
Drank the rest of it.
So he took this coffee cup, right? And they tested it, and it was an exact match to the DNA found on Lois Patrice's body.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up putting him under surveillance for a few weeks afterwards to try and see if they could collect any more evidence before they eventually arrested and interrogated him. as they were interrogating him, they had people searching his home.
Right.
He was very arrogant. He was of the mentality of like, oh, the police have nothing on me, like I'll get out of this, blah blah blah, whatever. And so the police, they were like, oh, so what about your 4 sins? And he was, I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, oh, so you didn't tell your stepson's ex-wife Jeannie about your 4 sins? And so then they brought up the DNA evidence, and he still kept denying having anything to do with it. And the detective said that he was like, I have all the evidence I need. I just want to know why you've done this. And to this, Adolf replied, can I tell you a reason why something happened you're saying I did, that I have no knowledge of doing other than being questioned about it? Am I a stupid person? The detective responded that he had the truth on his side, to which Adolf said, okay, take it to the Lord and get me a lawyer. However, despite...
He confessed to it twice and almost a third time because he was like, I thought you were going to talk to me about this.
But regardless of the fact that they didn't get a formal confession, they managed to charge him with the murder of Lois Patrice. They didn't have enough evidence
for the other 3.
Yeah, because there was no physical DNA evidence. Police were absolutely stumped as to why he would have done this, and the townspeople actually thought that the police were framing him.
Really?
Yeah, people that knew him.
Because they really liked him, right?
Yeah, they were like, he's so nice, he's so caring, he's so generous.
People always say that about murderers.
Not always.
Not always, but a lot of the time. On murderers or any situation kind of like that. You always see on the news, oh, they were such a normal person. Oh, I like them a lot. They were great. Murders their entire family.
So then in 2006, 34 years after the murders, the trial took place. He and Renee both took the stand and revealed to the court how he confessed his crimes to them 27 years apart from one another. The women had never heard of each other or met before this case. The trial lasted for 3 weeks, and after just 1 day of deliberation, the jury came back with the verdict that Adolph Laudenberg was guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Laudenberg never officially confessed to the murders. He was, however, he was also suspected of murdering 2 other women around the same time as the others. 55-year-old Irene Hind was the owner of Irene's Domer Club, which was a bar in San Francisco. She was a kind and generous woman who always wanted to help those that came into her bar. However, she was found raped and strangled on March 12, 1974. Maud Burgess, 83, was a retired woman who helped to manage the apartment building that she lived in San Francisco. She was found raped and strangled as well, and there was actually a partial fingerprint that was found at the scene, but it wasn't a match for Adolph Laudenberg.
Okay.
So like I said, he's never officially been connected to either one of those 2 crimes, but
murder, so either it was him or a copycat.
They were just so similar that I thought that I would include them. And they were mentioned in one of the sources that I had found. Actually, a couple sources, I think.
And you said there was a documentary, right?
It's very...
Is that on YouTube?
Yeah.
We can link that at the bottom of our video.
Yeah, I think it's just called the Santa Strangler. It's a re-upload of a documentary. But yeah, so he's never been officially connected to these two crimes, and like I said, I don't think he was charged with the murders of Catherine Medina, Anna Felch, or Leah Griffin because of the lack of physical evidence. However, he did confess to them on 2 different occasions. They just weren't formal confessions. Um, Laudenberg actually tried to appeal the DNA evidence being used in the trial later on. He said that it wasn't within their right to collect it in the way that they had. His team claims that the restaurant should have thrown out his cup when he left. However, the officers stated that once an item is discarded, it becomes public property. The conviction was upheld, and he is still in prison to this day. He would currently be 94 to 95 years old.
This bitch still alive. I would have died already.
So,
I get convicted of like murder at like 80 something years old. As if I would even make it that old. I don't plan on it, but like you get convicted of murder and you're like the rest of your life is literally gonna be in jail. I would have just killed myself already. Not gonna lie.
right. Like what? But he's already lived much more of his life than his victims had.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's honestly just so sad. But yes, that is the Santa Strangler, our very festive murder for this episode. I know we said we were
You know that audio that goes, it's like it's a Santa song, but it's like, you better watch out, you better watch out, you better watch out. That makes me think of that.
So, anything else for the podcast this week, Bestie?
I can't think of anything.
Oh, I guess let us know if you like the theme episode kind of business.
Yeah, let us know in like the comments or whatever, if you prefer like this like themed kind of layout, or if you prefer like our kind of more chaotic, little bit of everything layout.
Right. So
we'll
like
we'll probably do a little mix of them, but like let us know which one you like better.
right, because we both kind of like the idea of doing like some themed episodes.
Yeah.
Because it kind of gives it a nice little flow, and then it kind of makes us do things a little bit differently. That's fun.
Yeah. I really want to do one on like lore and like folk tales and stuff. That might be our next one.
Yeah. We'll see about that one. That's gonna take a lot of research.
Yeah.
So yeah. But we're gonna play around with it. So just let us know what you want to see, I guess. Give us recommendations, ideas, things you guys want to see. It could be a podcast for the people. So I guess if that's all, Bestie, we should do the closeout thing.
What's our closeout?
I don't know. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Happy holidays, guys.
Oh yeah, happy holidays. Whatever ones you guys celebrate. Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, Yule.
Yeah, whatever it is.
And if you don't celebrate nothing, happy holidays anyways.
With your family, you know, or don't spend some time with your
family. Let us know in the comments how your holidays go if you want to, or let us know your holiday traditions too.
Yeah, put it down in the comments down below. That'd be a cute little thing. Tell us what you do.
Yes.
So we will see you guys on the next one.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.